To you, Dan Richards. Dan is a serial entrepreneur, and he also characterizes himself as a recovering investment banker. He's a graduate of Hanover High. He's a native of New Hampshire and Middlebury College, and he played sports while he was in college. He received his MBA from the Tuck School of Business at Dartmouth. He lives in Hanover with his wife and 2 children. So thanks very much and welcome.
Hello, everybody. And first, I just want to say thank you very much for having me, and to all of you for coming here to hear me speak. And thank you to our senators and representatives who are doing a heroic job, I think, putting this bill HB 544 forward. So, you know, Keith Ammon and Representative Ammon and Representative Abard and everybody else that's advocating for it, because I can tell you the road to getting this thing done and opposing critical race theory is a non-trivial kind of thing. So I'm still trying to figure out what the heck I'm doing here, honestly. You know, I've never been to Hollis, and I live in Hanover. This is a beautiful town. So for those of you who live in Hollis, you know, you're really blessed because it is beautiful. But I'm not never have been a particularly political person. You know, I go to the polls, I vote, never been to a political rally or event or really anything else. And, you know, they say that sometimes in life that you know, rather than you choosing the road kind of chooses you. And that is 100% what has happened to me. So I grew up in Hanover. I went to Hanover High School. I left to go to Middlebury, and then I ended up in New York City doing investment banking and was in the financial services and private equity industry for a bunch of years. Then left to become an entrepreneur about 17 years ago and started a company actually in Boston, and have started several since. But about 5 years ago, we opened actually 2012, we opened our first office in New Hampshire. Boston was becoming somewhat unlivable for some of my employees from a cost standpoint and just from a livability standpoint. And we decided that we would try and move our companies to New Hampshire. And so I love the community that I grew up in. I wanted to move back there. I remember it as being you know, just a great, inclusive, wonderful place. And so we bought a house, we rented some office space, and we started moving our employees up to actually Lebanon, which is where our headquarters is. And we decided to move our headquarters there in 2000, just about 5 years ago, so 2016. And you know, we started having children. So I have a 7-year-old daughter and a 5-year-old son, and I thought that the Upper Valley community would be just a phenomenal place to raise kids, because that's where I grew up and I remembered it as being great. And so I had never been to a PTO meeting, I had never been to a school board meeting, just not really engaged, just kind of doing my thing, raising my family, going to work every day, like I'm sure many of you do. And on January 24th, I got an email from the new associate principal at our children's elementary school that introduced herself and talked about nothing but this word equity, which has been bandied about here this evening. And so I have a finance background. I know what equity in a house is. I know what equity in the markets is. I've done a lot of equity deals. I'd never heard of equity used in the context of an elementary school education. And so I started asking some questions, and I could not get this new associate principal to give me a straight answer as to what equity meant. In the introductory email, one of the things that, two things that were disconcerting, to say the least, was she said she was starting a book group with this book that I come to find out compares the social structure and government of our country to Nazi Germany, which seemed a little extreme to me when I read it. And then the second thing that I read in that initial email was that she planned on having a lot of quote unquote difficult conversations with our children. And so, you know, the red flags were, spiraling out of control. And so I went back and forth. And so she told me that I needed to understand, the only way I could understand what it is that she was talking about was to assign me a bunch of readings. So she assigned me as a parent a bunch of homework, which I thought I graduated from those schools, but fine. So it seemed very bizarre to me. But anyway, I read the things that she gave me, and the readings were all from this school called critical race theory. I'd literally never heard those three words together in a sentence, before January 24th. It was actually after that, because I didn't do the reading. That's when I got the email. The readings were actually after that. So I start doing these readings, and the stuff that I'm reading about critical race theory is just, it made my hair stand on it. I could not believe what I was reading. And some of the leading theorists of critical race theory, and I'll just talk about what my perception of critical race theory is here for a minute. People like, and you can write these guys down because they're the leaders and they're mixing the Kool-Aid. Guys like Ibram Kendi, who wrote the seminal work, How to Be an Anti-Racist. That book is misnamed. It actually should be How to Be a Racist, with respect to that one. And then Robin DiAngelo, who wrote another New York Times, tells you something, probably not too many, hopefully in this room read the Times. I certainly don't anymore. But white fragility, right? So, and basically what these folks say, is as follows. And that is that it assumes that racism is present in everything. In every interaction that you have, there is racism present. There are no interactions that aren't racist in some way. It divides society into the oppressed and oppressors. And you can guess who plays what role with oppressed and oppressors. White people can only be oppressors, only. People who are not white can only be oppressed. That's the deal with critical race theory. That equity is defined as equality of outcome, not equality of opportunity. It is, call it Marxist, communist, socialist, all those things apply. And one of the most unbelievable things is that it seeks to dismantle the colorblind framework that governs American society. That our skin color somehow is supposed to be the most important thing about us. Not the quality of our character, not the things that Dr. Martin Luther King taught us, but just our skin color. So she assigns me these readings, and this is what I come away with. And I'm thinking, my word, this woman is a radical with a capital R. But maybe I'm mistaken. I pray that I am. While I'm doing this research, I get a study that was done of our school system that was of the equity of the school. And the equity report comes back super positive. We're inclusive, we don't discriminate, we treat everybody equally, exactly the way I remembered it when I was there. And but it mentions this course that they were teaching at the high school called it was basically how to become an anti-racist activist by exploring whiteness and becoming an anti-racist activist. And the stuff that was in this course was unbelievable. And it started with a quiz that basically said that the rise of white supremacy, the major causative factor in white supremacy was the Declaration of Independence in the United States. So, I could not believe what I was reading. I could not believe what was being taught at our kids' school. And so while this is happening, my wife and I, we care very much about, we've been blessed with great success in business. And, we care about certain causes. And education and children are one of the causes that we care, in addition to veterans and the environment, that we care very much about. And so we were talking about how disproportionately, particularly in inner cities, that minority communities are disproportionately affected by a broken education system. And how do we address that? And, my solution is, basically the American dream. I'm I'm the son of a guy that went on a full scholarship out of New York City, got himself, went to Dartmouth. I grew up in a house at the end of a dirt road in Vermont that, I could show you a picture of it. It's very small, but I watched him be successful and, every single day sort of live the American dream. And I think that's available to every American out there if they, want to put in the sweat and, work hard and, give it their best shot and get a little bit of, obviously fortune is not a bad thing to have. So, what I really wanted to make sure of was that I wasn't mischaracterizing or I didn't misunderstand the things that I had read, and I asked some more questions, and I landed on this Kendi quote, which I think all of you should be aware of. And Kendi, who is one of the leading guys here, says that the only remedy to past discrimination is present discrimination, and the only remedy to present discrimination is future discrimination. And discrimination against white people, just FYI, it's not racist according to this theory. It's mandatory because you can only be racist or anti-racist. There is no colorblindness. There is no neutral territory where you say, I'm not a racist. Well, by saying that you're not a racist, you're a racist. That's the camp it puts you in. So I go to a PTO meeting on February 25th, talk about donating an entrepreneurship center to our school with the idea that if we can be successful here in New Hampshire, maybe we can, blueprint it and bring it to other schools in other parts of the country and help solve some of these problems that are affecting our society. I guess that's what entrepreneurs do, right? We see a problem, we try to fix it and, make things better. So discussion of HB 544 and critical race theory, as this was happening, our friend was texting my wife, who was putting our children down, and she gets a text that says, is Dan okay? He's kind of being attacked at this meeting. And my wife is thinking, my husband's at a virtual, PTO meeting. Why wouldn't he be okay, right? So she comes running down as the meeting's ending, and, I just told her I was just stunned about what had happened. So it went from bad to worse, though, because not only was I not able to express my opinion, arguably my First Amendment right to speak my mind was suppressed by this individual, but I come to find out in the weeks that follow that she likely and or others are calling me and my family white supremacists, racists, every like I have a Klan robe hanging in my closet. I mean, every terrible thing that you could imagine about somebody who is unacceptably intolerant, which is exactly the opposite of the person that I am in the people that I'm related to. So in the wake of that, we have had an unbelievable experience in our school system. I start digging and find out that these diversity, equity, and inclusion committees have been meeting since at least 2019. They have had zero oversight by our school boards. They are influencing curriculum. The things that they are advocating for, I actually found a document that stated that equity study that I mentioned earlier, it came back so positive in this update that they gave, that equity study is way too positive and needs to be ignored, and that the school needs to be socially transformed. We heard this from the new associate principal, that they needed to remove logic and argument from the curriculum, and that they needed to start teaching whiteness and racism in kindergarten at our school. And I'm the racist, right? So, I continue to not be able to believe what it is that I'm dealing with. I'm hoping that one day, I just wake up from this nightmare, and it's affecting my family in a really sort of terrible way. So, if you're to attack me in some way, look, I can defend myself, but you're going after my wife, you're going after my kids, you know, these people that my wife thought were her friends, some of them she's known for quite some time, gone. Our children, shunned. It's an unbelievable environment. And I can tell you what, the town that I grew up in is not the town I live in right now in Hanover, New Hampshire. It is, it's an unbelievable place. So we have had some very hard discussions about whether or not we are, you know, going to fight it or leave. And we've decided to fight. So for the last, our journey over the last 60 days has been pretty unbelievable. And for a lot of it, we felt sort of very much alone. And I can't tell you how grateful I am that there are, and I'm speaking to a room of people like yourselves who are patriotic, wonderful Americans. Sorry, it's a little emotional. So thank you very much. We are going to contest this garbage with every ounce of our being because it's the right thing to do. And you know, thank you all of you for being here and for please supporting our legislators to get this legislation across the finish line. We need to fight back. We need to hammer these folks in the most respectful, decent way because that is not who they are. They are not respectful, they are not decent, and we are. So let's take the fight to them, and let's uphold our values and the things that we believe in. So thank you very much.
Thank you. So what a powerful story. But keep in mind, the total amount of time that he was talking about is about 120 days. So it's immediate, it's now, and it's directed at really good people. Any questions at all for Dan? Kevin?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but was there an issue of secret meetings going on?
Oh, absolutely. So I mentioned that these DEI committees were happening totally outside. There was no governance structure, there was no school board, there was no announcements, there was no minutes, there's absolutely nothing for probably the better part of 2 years. And because of some of the pressure that we've been applying, the school boards have now voted to bring the DEI committees, and I still don't know how many there are, but the DEI committees in our community underneath the school boards. So, but there's a whole, I mean, they've already been influencing curriculum and doing a lot of other things in our community, basically under the cover of darkness, and really unbelievable.
One more question in the back.
I try to follow logic. During last summer, I saw many news exposés of Black Lives Matter marches, and most of the faces during the day were white. Are all those people racist?
One more question.
I serve on the school board in Nashville. And on our school board, we have a curriculum committee, and that curriculum committee has to approve anything that's taught. Basically, if we have a new program of study, it comes in and the board reviews it, and then on a vote, the board decides whether that will be taught. So in Nashville anyway, if they are teaching, and I do not know whether they are teaching, I have been told just this week I had the first time where someone said to me it was being taught. And that could mean that only one teacher is teaching it. I mean, you assume if one is that there are others, but I don't want to assume anything. I don't want to get in front of the cart. So my question would be, if that indeed is the case, then why, and I have to applaud your ability to articulate calmly and rationally what's happening, because when we let passion when passion gets in front, sometimes the brain stays behind. You have kept your brain, and I'm so glad that you have. We need people in this great country. We so badly need people who can articulate calmly and rationally, and be respectful and exchange. It's all right for you to disagree with me. 80-20 is the rule I always heard. But I go back to this thing about this. So in your school board, was that passed? And if it wasn't passed, then are they not in violation of the whole foundation of your school and your school board? And if they are, then isn't there some? The one gentleman said, well, he thought that you would fire the teacher. You have to, in our school, it goes, you keep a record, like the superintendent. When somebody violates anything, it's supposed to go in their records. It's supposed to be recorded. But I found that it wasn't always being recorded.
So Dan, how would you respond?
Well, thank you for that question in the comment. You know, look, we have a situation in Hanover where, and with this ideology, it's almost never called critical race theory. It's always cloaked in really seductive, like inclusivity and diversity and the equity and these terms. And there are pieces of it here and pieces of it there, and things that are happening over there that it's a very slippery thing to try to pin down. And we have teachers in our school that, for instance, some of them are embracing like 1619, but there are others who are not on board. So we are on, I think, the beginning of the continuum for the implementation of critical race theory. We don't have, as far as I know, a curriculum committee. I think that's something that is in formation right now, and they're going to be doing a curriculum study and then making modifications to the curriculum in our district. So I think that's coming. Let me just say one other thing, and that is one of the things they love to talk about is the work that's being done and the difficult conversations that I mentioned. I can tell you, I've been trying to engage and have a difficult conversation with literally anybody on the other side that's willing to debate me as to, the value of these concepts. I can't get anybody to engage with me in a difficult conversation. Like, here I am, let's debate it, but they're not interested.
So thanks very much, Dan. We're going to move on, and Dan will be around at the end if there's any questions you'd like. So thanks very much.
Croc TV.